For all those that are interested, there is now going to be a vigil. We're going to have a vigil at the Central Library for the 58 Palestinians that have been murdered yesterday in Gaza by the Israeli snipers. You won't be reading about it in the news, or at least if you do, it will be distorted and misframed. But we know that we will stand with the Palestinians. Mandela said we will never have our freedom without the freedom of the Palestinian people. Archbishop Desmond Tutu went to Palestine and said what's happening to the Palestinians is worse than apartheid South Africa. So why are we not all standing by them like we stood by Mandela, like we stood by the blacks in South Africa? We're saying no more investment in the arms trade. We're saying no more investment, no more making billions off the deaths of Palestinians. No more making billions off those that are being murdered. 58 murdered. 58 people killed yesterday, just yesterday. Over 100 people killed in the last 6 weeks of protest. They are protesters. These are Palestinians in Gaza trying to get some life, some freedom. And I was in Gaza for 2 years, so I know what it was like. I was a teacher in Gaza. I lost 2 of my own students, one of them our entire family, but there were 500 children killed in those 50 days. 500 children killed in 50 days in 2014, and one of them was my own student and her entire family. 90 entire families were wiped off the citizen registry, and Elbit drones, the company that HSBC invests in, were those that were used to kill most people in Gaza during those 50 days. Elbit systems. And yet they're making money off of it. And of course it's guys in suits up top. You know, the shiny little glow, the happy little people who work there. Of course they probably don't have a clue what it's like in those hospitals. They don't have a clue where those bombs land. But if they could see what I saw, I guarantee you they would walk out, believe me. And what is saddest of all is that those kids have got just as much about them and just as much hope for their future as any other kids elsewhere. That is the saddest part, because they've got nowhere to go. If you're in Gaza, your life is F-16s above you, drones dropping bombs. You've got the Gaza fence on the land border where there's jeeps and snipers shooting at you like they've killed people yesterday. And you've also got the gunships chasing after the fishermen. Just go to the beach in Gaza and have a look at those ships chasing after the fishermen, destroying the fishing industry, killing fishermen regularly. They're surrounded. A population that is mostly children in Gaza. A population that is mostly children. You won't get this on the BBC, you won't get this in the newspapers, but believe me, when I saw a BBC reporter in that hospital, and I knew that that 2-year-old Haneen had just died because I witnessed it in the intensive care unit, I screamed at the BBC. I was on the BBC quite a few times, and they told me, please don't be political. They told me, don't, please, and then they cut me off after about 2 minutes. I'm telling the truth. I was on the radio, and the questions you get is Hamas, 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 when all the killing is being carried out by the Israeli bombers. All the killing. The family that I taught, the Samouni family, check that family out. S-A-M-O-U-N-I, they have names. 29 members of their family murdered. 29 members of their family murdered in 3 days. 21 with 1 bomb. 4 of them lay in the rubble next to their dead family members for 3 days. 3 of the children. They made 147 calls to the Red Cross. The Israeli army would not let them get anywhere near it. They were lying there in the rubble next to their dead family. I asked Mona Samouni, 11 years old, what message do you have for people in England? And she said, take care of your parents. I don't have any parents anymore, and I can't take care of them. This was 11-year-old Mona Samouni, who's actually a really good student, and somehow, after a really bad period, came through this. It shows that we've got a lot more in the tank, and it shows that we can do so much more. And if those people in Palestine, in Gaza, are walking out knowing that they've got nothing to lose, knowing that their lives are just under the Israeli bombs, and they say, I'm willing to stand, I'd rather stand and face the bullets than die in my house, than die in my apartment being bombed. They'd rather do that. And you might remember Soweto in South Africa in 1976, where the blacks marched against the whites in South Africa, and they knew they'd get shot. You might remember Selma in the US, in the South, where Martin Luther King and others knew that they would get shot up, but they marched anyway. You might even remember in Northern Ireland, in Bloody Sunday, where protesters were killed. You might even remember people facing the bullets in Egypt and Tunisia in the revolutions, where they knew they could get killed, but they went out anyway. That's exactly what Palestinians have been doing the last 6 weeks in Gaza. You won't get it in the newspapers, you won't get it in the BBC, But I know what's going on, and if you take a close look at the figures, take a close look at who's getting killed and who's getting attacked and who's been forced off their land and what Palestine used to be 70 years ago before it was wiped out, and now it's even being more wiped out, then you would see very clearly, very easily. In fact, go to Palestine, you get a really warm welcome. I'm British, but I went to Palestine and everyone welcomed me into their homes like there's no tomorrow, because they just want to have some kind of contact with the outside world, because the Israeli army is surrounding them their entire lives. If you're a 10-year-old in Gaza, you've been through 3 major attacks in the last 10 years. If you're a 10-year-old kid. 3 major bombing campaigns, 1,400 killed in 2008-9, 3 weeks, 300 kids, 330. When I was there, 2012, they started bombing when I was teaching in university. There was 170 killed. That was when I was in the hospital seeing what was coming in. And it was kids, it was elderly, it was women. 2012, 30 kids killed. And then you've just had 2014, where we've had 2,200 killed, 500 children in 50 days, 10,000 injured. And now what have we got? Thousands been shot, protesters. Thousands shot with live ammunition, exploding bullets. That's how they deal with protesters. 58 killed just yesterday, protesters in Gaza by the Israeli snipers. And we are supplying snipers to Israel, Britain. HSBC invests in Elbit, the largest drone company in the world, because they get to practice on the civilians of Gaza. You go in Gaza, just spend 5 minutes there, you'll hear a drone in the sky. They're surrounded by drones. The Israeli drones that they test the weaponry on in order to make more money, so that HSBC will find their investment a little bit more prosperous. Find that end contact. Do not miss the connect. Make that connect between your high street bank and what they're investing in and what's happening on the ground somewhere around the world. Because those human beings are just as valuable as you are. And they care for their kids just as much as you care for yours.